In this video, we'll be installing and configuring UniversRadio for use with DCS World in the 476. Note that this video is applicable to the versions of UniversRadio listed in the description below. Any special notes will be placed and updated in the description as new versions of UniversRadio are released. If this video is no longer applicable, it will be replaced with a new video. First, download the 3 executables from Tacno's link provided in the description. That should be the UniversRadio installer and the NTTR and Caucasus Relief maps. We do not need to use admin privileges to install UniversRadio. Simply click each executable and install. Leave all options checked. Choose your destination folder. I prefer the default. And it is typical for the installer to hang slightly during the font's installation, but it should complete shortly. Next, let's install the NTTR Relief map. And let's go ahead and install the Caucasus Relief map. Now, once these installations are done, we're going to launch the UniversRadio control panel and get it configured. The control panel should be found in your start menu. Okay, the first thing to do is install UniversRadio into the export Lua. Note, this is installing UniversRadio into your default DCS installation. In other words, not your Nevada Open Alpha installation or the Open Beta. We're going to take steps to install it there as well. But we do want to make sure it's installed. Even if you don't have the default DCS installation, still go through this process because it'll create folders in your saved games location that we'll need to get access to. The next thing we want to do is configure our push to talks. This is in UniversRadio only. So radio 1 will be your VHF FM radio. So for me, on my Hodis Warthog, that will be my aft switch on the mic switch. That's the VHF FM or Fox mic radio. Next will be radio number 2, which is your UHF or uniform radio. That will be my mic switch down. And then finally will be radio 3 is the VHF AM or Victor radio. So for A10 pilots, that might seem a little backwards, but that is the order in UniversRadio. So now I'm going to push my forward or front button on my mic switch. The next thing I want to do is set my ears. This is where you'll hear comms from people talking on each of the radios. This is a personal preference. Some folks prefer to use both ears for all 3 radios and simply use volume control to differentiate which radio is being communicated on. Other folks like to set ears to distinguish. So for me, I use my left ear for anything coming out from my VHF FM or Fox mic, both ears for uniform, and my right ear for VHF AM. Again, that's personal preference. No need to set the external radio or transponder. These items are not required for the DCS A10, only for FC3 modules or aircraft that have not been implemented by UniversRadio. We do want to set the exclusive button. What this does is makes it so that when we're in a channel on TeamSpeak using UniversRadio inside of the sim and someone else joins the channel, we cannot hear their conversations unless they're A, using UniversRadio, and B, dialed into the same frequency we are in the sim. The next thing we want to do is choose our output sound device. If all of your sounds, both your TeamSpeak as well as your game sounds, come through your headset, there is no need to make a change here. If you're like me and you use a headset for your TeamSpeak sounds, yet you have your game sounds coming through physical speakers, you do want to choose your headset's sound device in this selection here. Elsewise, all of your UniversRadio audio cues will play through your speakers and it'll be a very disconcerting experience. No need to set ATIS for LAN party. Secure codes, we will leave these as default from now, and we will also leave the IFF mode 4 to default. Finally, leave your channel preset as default. Some folks are confused about this 476 NTTR setting. If you've installed this INI from our downloads, this is only required if you fly aircraft such as the MiG-21 in our missions. the A10 will pick up the presets from the mission file as long as this checkbox here is checked. So let's go ahead and apply and exit. Note, every time you want to make a change or tweak these settings, you must, after applying, close TeamSpeak and restart TeamSpeak. So we're going to go ahead and exit that. The next thing we want to do is configure the LUAC so that it is now installed not only in our DCS default directory, which you'll notice here in my saved games, I've got 3, I've got DCS, Open Alpha, and Open Beta. So it only installed here, but we want to install it to the Open Alpha because that's where we currently play on the NTTR. Quite simply, go into our scripts directory and copy the Tacno World UR LUAC to our DCS Open Alpha directory, the same location. Actually, I think I did that earlier, so I'm just going to replace it. The next thing we want to do, because it's not done by default, is we want to go into the export Lua. Again, I'm in my default DCS directory, edit it, and copy out this line that references the file we just moved over and move it into the one in our Open Alpha directory. Now I've already done that, so when I get in here, the line should already be present. Remember to always edit these files with Notepad++. Do not use Windows Notepad to edit DCS Lua files. So as you can see, I just copied it there at the bottom, saved the file, good to go. You've now completed the installation and configuration of UniversRadio, but there's one additional thing to do, and that is to set up your push-to-talks in TeamSpeak. In other words, by default, those push-to-talks you configured are only for actuating the radios in UniversRadio. We now need to tell TeamSpeak to use the same push-to-talk buttons. So simply launch TeamSpeak, go into Settings, Options, go to Capture, and now what we want to do is set more hotkeys, and quite simply map each of your joystick's push-to-talk keys in TeamSpeak. So for me, that's going to be, I have the HOTUS Warthog, so we're going to simply go with forward, so button 4. Then we're going to add mid, which is button 5. Then we're going to add aft, which is button 6. So now we have 3 push-to-talks in TeamSpeak. Of course, you can create as many as you want if you want additional. And now we're done with that. So the next thing we want to do is we want to test all of this in DCS. So before you test with anyone else, it's really good to do a self-check, because UniversRadio, even though you wouldn't be talking to anyone, it will actually activate even when you're in single player. So quite simply, what we're going to do is we're going to connect to the TeamSpeak server.
Channel switched.
And what we're going to do is if I click on my name, you'll notice here that I now have a UniversRadio status. It shows that I'm not connected. So what we're going to do is simply launch DCS, and we're going to make sure that it does actively connect and pick up the radios in SIM. So I'm just going to use a quick start mission because that will be the fastest way to validate. Let's give a second here for DCS to start. It's taking a little longer than usual, of course, because I'm recording a video. There we go. And we'll jump right into an instant action mission. And as soon as I unpause it, you should see UniversRadio status turn to green. And because I will actually be in an active mission, you should actually see all 3 radios on and the frequency shown. Of course, when you jump into a cold jet, you'll show yourself as connected, but you won't see the radios because you haven't yet powered them on. Let's just go into active pause mode here. And there we go. So I now have a green connected status, and at the same time, I have all 3 of my radios. So as I push my push to talks, you'll see that they're actually highlighting. Now you can also cross-check other people who may not be using UniversRadio and whether they have it turned on. So if someone was in the channel with me, I could actually click on their names. I would not see their frequencies, but I would see radio 1, 2, and 3 and which one they're pushing. So this has been a video of how to install, configure, and check your UniversRadio installation.